Hi, everybody. This is Ruta Lee, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Jim Rosen will join us at the top of the hour. We'll talk about the origins of the NBA as well as the rise of professional basketball in the city of Philadelphia. We hope you stay tuned for that. In the meantime, by now, most of you are probably aware of the passing of Neil Sedaka. Neil Sedaka, the Grammy Award-winning singer, songwriter, and pianist who sold millions of records worldwide and who wrote or co-wrote more than 500 songs for himself and other artists in a career that spanned nearly 7 decades. Neil Sedaka passed away Friday, February 27th at the age of 86 because of the often symbiotic relationship between music and television. The subject of Neil Sedaka has come up many times in the course of our Doing TV Confidential, including a conversation that originally aired in June 2012 with our friend Rich Podolksy. Rich's books include Don Kirshner, The Man with the Golden Ear, the story of Aldon Music. Aldon Music, the song publishing firm that Don Kirshner formed in 1958 that published more than 200 hit records in a 5-year span, while also launching the careers of such artists as Bobby Darin, Connie Francis, Carole King, Howard Greenfield, and Neil Sedaka. As we pick up the conversation with Rich Podolksy, Rich and I are talking about what made Aldon Music different than any other music publishing company. What made the songs of Aldon Music different than anything else at the time?
Several things made the songs different. First of all, Aldon was an unbelievably unique publishing house. Most publishers would see a songwriter by appointment only, listen to 4 or 5 songs, say maybe they'd buy one for $50, and they'd say if the song gets recorded, come back and see me, I'll give you another $50. The case with Aldon was Aldon was named for Al Nevins and Don Kirshner. Al and Don combined their first names. They got Aldon out of it. Al Nevins was older, he was wiser, he was street savvy, he was a producer for RCA, he was a former performer. He started a group that was very successful in the 40s and the 50s called the Three Sons, and he knew a lot about the business, but he didn't know much about rock and roll or where to find the good songwriters, and that's why he and Kirshner, even though Kirshner was only 23 at the time, that's why they made such a great duo. And their strategy was far different than other publishers. Their strategy was that if they saw a good songwriter or a good songwriting team, they would not just buy a song, but they would try to sign them to a 5-year contract. Kirshner felt that it would take at least a year or two to get these songwriters, these teenage songwriters, to understand how to write the best way they could to become really successful in the business. And that after 2 years, then he would get their best efforts and their best songs. And he wanted to have their songs at that point, and if he didn't sign them, he'd watch somebody else get their best songs. So that's what they did. They gave them $50 a week for the most part. The $50 a week was sort of like commission against the sale. And when they sold a song, the $50 came out of that. But it was pretty fair because they got a place to work. They got other songwriters who they became friends with to bounce things off of. And mostly they had Kirshner's golden ear, and Kirshner was available to them 24/7 anytime they wanted to play a song or find out what needed to be done to make it better. He was there for them.
$50 a week, back in 1958 was a lot of money, especially if you're 18, 19, 20 years old, which is the age of a lot of the people that Don and Al brought into the fold at Aldon. Isn't that right, Rich?
Yeah, and they were all living at home. They really didn't have much in the way of expenses other than Carole King and Jerry Goffin, who got married very young, and because she got pregnant and they had a child very young. She was 17 years old when her first child was born, or she might have just turned 18. But regardless, most of those kids, they really, Sedaka and Greenfield, for example, they just took the subway in from Brooklyn They lived at home. Mm-hmm. They were writing hit songs. Nobody knew who they were until Sedaka decided he wanted to take a chance and record his own stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. You were talking about the strategy that Al and Don did when they formed the company, which and basically it was finding talent, developing and nurturing talent. And I'm focusing on the word nurturing because they didn't have just a professional investment in these people. In many cases, they had a personal investment. And you mentioned Carole King and Jerry Goffin. There are times when Don would go the extra mile for them when he knew they were struggling.
Yeah, I point out in the book that when Carole King first came to Don Kirshner, he fell in love with her as a personality and her music, but she didn't write a hit song for him with Jerry for a period of well over a year. Mm-hmm. It could have been a year and a half. They had 45 songs that have been documented that Kirshner published between December 59 and 1961 when they had their first hit, Will You Love Me Tomorrow. 45 songs he published that were flops. Not one of them hit the charts. Not one of them made the charts. And he stuck with them. He kept giving them $50 a week each. He kept paying their rent. He bought them baby furniture. He paid their rent when they were stuck. They had a second child. Anybody else might have said, I'll see you after 25 misses or 30 misses. Kirshner stuck with them. He wasn't going anywhere. He knew, he just felt they were going to make it. And as Jerry Goffin said, when he heard Will You Love Me Tomorrow, the tune that Carole left him the first time, he said it was as if God was looking after us.
Rich Podolsky from a conversation that originally aired in June 2012 about Don Kirshner and Aldon Music. Aldon Music, the song publishing firm that launched the career of many artists, including Neil Sedaka. Rich Podolsky's books include Don Kirshner, The Man with the Golden Ear, and Neil Sedaka, Rock and Roll Survivor. Both of those books are available at Amazon.com. Neil Sedaka passed away Friday, February 27th at the age of 86. Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay Area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
We'll continue our tribute to Neil Sedaka. When we come back, we'll play a clip from Harvey Lisberg, the man who paved the way for Sedaka's triumphant comeback in the 1970s, both as a songwriter and as a recording artist. Plus, Tony Tennille will tell us the backstory of Love Will Keep Us Together, the Sedaka tune that put Captain and Tennille on the map, while also winning the Grammy Award for Record of the Year. All that and more as we continue our tribute to Neil Sedaka. We come back here on TV Confidential.